Hey guys, it's Josh. Today we're going to talk about a zero-day use case, which is really one of MixMode's superpowers, like being able to detect these things before an IOC or a CVE is released. And the one we're going to talk about is the MOVEit IT exploitation or extortion that you've been seeing out there. I'm going to just quickly grab some stuff from Mandy and then ask the question of how would MixMode detect this? What were some of the things that they could detect? So let's get started on this zero-day exploitation. Okay. All right, so first and foremost, who is it? It's the MOVEit Transfer Software, so file transfer software. There's a zero-day SQL injection that potentially led to remote code execution. How did they get in? How was it exploited? So email phishing and the CVE exploit or initial access is what's been reported by Mandiant. And then they create a web shell that exploited the existing MOVEit software, and they use that SQL injection to start to build that web shell and then create a connection with clients to be able to interact and extort data. What would MixMode detect before the IOC was published? The two things that I really see are a web shell through HTTP beacon and some abnormal traffic. So before any CVE is released, before any details, what are the things that MixMode AI would detect? Okay, so let's get into some of the details. So MOVEit Transfer Software with a subsequent data theft resulting deployment of a web shell and data theft. And that's the big part for a solution like MixMode is we're able to see that network traffic without agents or logs and understand, all right, what is this detail that's moving back and forth? They use basically a Limor loop provides functionality tailored to execute a system running. That's one of the tools that the attackers used to retrieve configuration information, delete users, be able to interact with the MOVEit software on client sites. So in many cases, the scanning exploitation leading to the delivery of that Limor route. So they're using a web shell to potentially deliver that and then go and talk to this IP range. And so that if that shows up as an abnormal connection, an IP you don't usually communicate with, that's something that potentially that MixMode would pop in. Now, the interaction with that web shell and data theft is really what starts to up level that because we're seeing that two-way communication, even if it's over an encrypted channel, as potentially abnormal. And it's interesting here, some of the details of it, this particular, tool being able to use the HTTP request to headers and information to be able to deliver some of that SQL injection codes in the settings. That's the zero-day vulnerability targets the file transfers and then uses web shells tailored for data theft. And that's kind of the key takeaway. Yes, there's IP connections that were reported, and that's important for abnormal. But the fact that once you click on the link or a common CVE has been exploited, like RDP or misconfiguration, then a web shell is established with this zero-day software, the communications that potentially MixMode AI could detect. All right, so here's some of the details of a potential AI alerts that MixMode would pop. Potential beaconing over HTTPS. So when that web shell connects, and I've clicked on the phishing link and that may potentially goes undetected, we're a second set of eyes to say, boom, all right, we're seeing Josh's computer communicate with this IP address or range it usually doesn't, and it's potentially beaconing. It's potentially using HTTP, SSL, and it's a two-way communication that's abnormal, and that's that web shell communication. Potential exfiltration, this is the data potentially moving off-site that's abnormal. Josh's computer usually doesn't communicate with this particular IP address, with this particular SNI, and now we're seeing that, and then MixMode actually has the details forensically to be able to drive the context associated with that particular connection. The other one is that initial access. So how did they initially get in? Clicking the phishing link, we have the ability to see initial access. So if they're taking advantage of a common CVE or a misconfiguration, we're going to pop an initial access to say, hey, this is abnormal for this particular user to leverage SNTP or TCP or UDP or whatever protocol that they're leveraging. It's abnormal for this particular connection to occur. And we're going to pop on that. So in summary, MixMode AI potentially detect on the MOVEit zero day is, hey, we're going to see potentially initial access, HTTP beaconing, and exfiltration, right? So those are the ways that we can detect a zero day before it gets released, before it gets published, and we can start to see some of those behaviors before you start to have a full-blown exploit in your hands. Hope this is helpful. Thanks so much, guys.